Oh boy, it's a minute review. Bachelor Party was a 1982 release by Mystique for the Atari 2600. A paddle game in the style of Breakout, in Bachelor Party you play as a man hosting a party full of beautiful young women, and your goal is to score with as many as you can before you run out of energy. To assist in this, your paddle contains Spanish Fly. When your man returns to the paddle, he's flaccid. But after you bounce him back with a little medicinal help, he's fully charged and ready to go. Your man starts by moving at a normal pace, but if at any point he hits the back wall or the second wall of women in Game Mode 2, he speeds up to a frantic pace, clearly sex-crazed. In Game Mode 1, there are 2 static lines of women and you play in stages. In Game Mode 2, there are more women per row and they advance in waves for more of a challenge. In both modes, you can play 1 or 2 player. Although certainly in bad taste, if I'm looking at this one objectively, it's not terrible as a Breakout game. Plenty of better ones out there though, so play those. 5 out of 10. Meh, review. Breakout was a 1978 release for the Atari 2600. A port of the popular arcade game, in Breakout you played with the paddle controller to keep a ball in play, eliminating lines of bricks. In order to do this, you operate a paddle at the bottom of the playfield. Pressing the button launches a ball, and then all you have to do is position your paddle to bounce the ball back at the bricks. As you eliminate bricks after a number of consecutive successful hits, or when the ball hits a brick from the top 3 rows, the ball will speed up, making it much more difficult to keep it in play. Game variations include multiplayer options, steerable balls, modes where you catch the ball when it hits your paddle, invisible bricks, as well as timed and breakthrough modes where the ball moves through the bricks. Breakout is an absolute classic and a staple of any 2600 collection. 7 out of 10. Meh, review. Bugs was a 1982 release by Data Age for the Atari 2600. A paddle game, in Bugs you play as an explorer who's landed their ship on what's supposed to be a long-dead planet. Unbeknownst to you, it's actually crawling with alien creatures hell-bent on ripping your ship to shreds. The top half of the screen will have waves of long bugs moving from bottom to top, trying to get to your hull. Use the paddle to guide your reticule and press the button to fire. If at any time one of these bugs reaches the top, you'll lose a life. In addition to this, there are Phylax drones that penetrate your ship and attack you. They start as green and can't be shot or hurt you. Then they turn yellow as a warning, and when they're red, they attack. Touching them will kill you, so you have to time your shot and move out of the way in order to hit them as they approach. Problem being is that the bugs up top move so fast that at any time being blocked from a side is extremely detrimental to play. None of the individual elements in Bugs are bad, but the execution here isn't great. Sad to say, I'm not a fan. 4 out of 10. Time for a mini review! Canyon Bomber was a 1979 release for the Atari 2600. A port of the arcade game of the same name, Canyon Bomber is a paddle game where you play as various aircraft trying to bomb as many bricks as possible to beat your opponent. Playing against the computer or a friend, the only control you have is to choose when to drop a bomb by pressing the button. Time your bombs to hit as many bricks as possible as your plane passes over the canyon over and over again until the timer runs out. Highest score wins. There are game modes that change how your bricks act, as well as another game entirely where you bomb ships by spinning the paddle to move a line that indicates which section your bomb will drop on. This game is more challenging than the canyon bombing, but ultimately has the same goal. Get as many points as you can by hitting the most targets. Canyon Bomber is fun for a little bit, particularly with a friend, but it's a little too simple for my taste. 5 out of 10. Time for another mini review. Commando Raid was a 1982 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Commando Raid, you play as an anti-aircraft battery defending your position against an onslaught of android paratroopers. Your battery is at the bottom center of the screen. Moving the joystick aims your gun, and pressing the button fires. At the start of each wave, helicopters will start dropping paratroopers, and you'll have to shoot them before they land at the buildings on your flank. You can shoot the helicopters themselves, which will stop them from dropping troops, but a new one will replace it quickly. Any soldier that lands on one of your buildings will start digging a tunnel to undermine your position. If the tunnel gets all the way to your gun, they detonate the mine and it's game over. There's a couple of game variations here, including adding a bomber that if their bomb gets to you, it's game over, as well as fixed or guided shots. Commando Raid isn't a bad game, but I find it to be pretty lackluster compared to other games in the genre. It might be the only game that I actually prefer the guided shots though, so at least there's that. 5 out of 10. Meh, review. Demons to Diamonds was a 1982 release for the Atari 2600. A paddle game, in Demons to Diamonds you play as a laser base with the goal of shooting demons in the same color as your laser and diamonds. Your laser is at the bottom of the screen, and the longer you hold the button, the further your laser goes. If you hit a demon that isn't the same color as you, it turns into a skull that'll shoot back. Sometimes this is unavoidable, so when it happens, just dodge it until it goes away. White diamonds will appear in the playfield, and if you can shoot them before they dart off the screen, you'll get bonus points. When playing with two players, you play as opposite colors and the second player's laser base is at the top. Demons to Diamonds is solid fun, especially with a friend. A simple concept, executed very well. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Eggomania was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. A paddle game, in Eggomania you play as a blue bear being assaulted by a turkey. This feathered fowl runs back and forth across the top of the screen, dropping eggs. Your goal is to catch all of them before they hit the floor. If an egg hits the floor, it breaks and a lake of yolks starts to build up. The game is played in stages, and at the end of each stage, you have an opportunity at vengeance. The turkey will run around, and pressing the button will shoot her eggs back at her. Hitting her will get you bonus points before advancing to the next round. Once you miss enough eggs that you're submerged, it's game over. Eggomania is a great paddle game with great graphics, and the added shooting stage is a fun break from the action. I like it a lot. 8 out of 10. It's a mini review! Night Driver was a 1980 release for the Atari 2600. An early racing game on the system that uses a paddle controller, in Night Driver you play as a driver, racing on a track at night. Your car is stationary at the bottom center of the screen. Pressing the button accelerates and spinning the paddle steers, but by steering, really all you're doing is moving the track around your car. There's some effort put in with surprisingly good graphics for houses and cars that you pass, but overall, all the pylons at the side of the track really wear on your eyes. Game modes include different difficulties, as well as timed and untimed races. I find that when I'm playing, I do well until my eyes can't take it anymore and I crash. Respectable for the time, but nowadays there are better racing games to play on the system. 4 out of 10. Mini review. Skydiver was a 1979 release for the Atari 2600. A two-player game, in Skydiver you play as parachutists competing to get the highest score by landing on your respective landing pads. Each player starts with a plane flying across the screen. Press the button to jump and then pull back on the joystick to deploy your parachute. Once deployed, you can move the joystick side to side in order to try and land as squarely on the landing pad as possible. Landing on the pad scores you up to 11 points based on how long you waited to deploy your parachute, with higher points awarded for those who deployed at the last minute. If you fail to deploy your chute, you crash into the ground and lose 4 points. The windsock at the bottom of the screen indicates the wind speed for any given jump, meaning that you have to accommodate for that in order to land successfully. You get 9 jumps and at the end, the highest score wins. In Game Mode 5, both players are jumping for the same pad. First to land gets all the points, leaving the other player with none. The difficulty switches control the speed of the planes. Skydiver is a basic concept, but despite that it can get pretty competitive, especially in Game 5. For an early release, it's actually loads of fun. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Sneak and Peek was a 1982 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. A simulation of the classic game of hide and seek, in Sneak and Peek you play with a friend or versus a computer to see how fast you can find your opponent. At least that's the idea. In reality, you'll likely just walk around pointlessly until the timer runs out. Both hiding and seeking work the same. There are 3 rooms and a yard, and in each location there are multiple hiding spots. In order to enter or seek one, you have to position yourself just perfectly as shown in the manual. Simply wander around until you find one, and you'll automatically enter it. Unless of course you press a button, which prevents you from entering. If you really must play this, make sure your difficulty switch is set to B, otherwise you'll never find anything. This is among the worst games I've ever played. It really sucks. 1 out of 10. Mini review. Street Racer was a 1977 release for the Atari 2600. One of the 9 launch games for the system, Street Racer is a collection of similar mini-games that use the paddle controllers. Each game is 2-player and you can play against a computer or a friend. The first game is a simple race. Your car is at the bottom and the goal is to pass the most cars before the time runs out. Use the button to accelerate and the paddle to steer. Next is a skiing game. Same controls, race on a slalom course, passing as many gates as you can to beat your opponent. Then another race very similar to the first, but instead of dodging cars, it's moving obstacles. Next is a jet shooter game. This time the button shoots, and instead of dodging what comes your way, you have to shoot them for points. Lastly, you race as a motorcycle hitting numbers to be the first to hit 99. You have to hit them dead on, otherwise you crash. For a launch game, Street Racer provides a bit of superficial variety, and the gameplay is alright, but there's definitely better out there. 5 out of 10. It's a mini review! Tac-Scan was a 1983 release by Sega for the Atari 2600. A port of the arcade game that uses the paddle controllers, in Tac-Scan you play as a squadron of 5 ships battling endless waves of enemy craft. Your squadron is at the bottom center of the screen, and rotating the paddle steers them through the environment, kind of like Time Pilot. Pressing the button shoots, and each ship of your squadron shoots when you do. Getting hit isn't immediate game over. Any ships in your squadron that receive shots will be eliminated. This will mean you have less firepower, but also less of an area that shots will be able to hit you. At the end of each stage, you'll have a chance to replenish these ships in a docking round. Ships will descend from the top of the screen, and you have to catch them on the platforms in the vacant spots. If you miss, you'll have to wait until the next stage in order to get that ship back. Tac-Scan is super simple with no game modes or variations. That said, it's fun enough that it's worth giving a shot if you get a chance. 6 out of 10. Mini review. Towering Inferno was a 1982 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Towering Inferno, you play as a firefighter trying to save people from a series of burning skyscrapers, floor by floor. At the start of each stage, we get a peek at the outside of the building before heading in. Inside, you start at the bottom and have to reach the window at the back of the room, represented by a white box at the top. Hiding behind that window are 4 survivors on each floor. In the way are flames moving frantically that you can extinguish with your hose that shoots either up or down, but not side to side. You need to be quick because survivors start to die if you take too long. If all 4 die, you lose a life and have to start over. Obviously, you also lose a life if you touch the flames. Once you reach the back window, the exit opens and you have to get back to the bottom to escape. The helicopter then takes the people you've rescued to safety before returning you to the next floor. There are 9 buildings with 9 floors each and multiple game variations to change things up. There's a tense feeling to this one with the roar of the flames and what's at stake. I actually really like it. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Wall Ball was a 1983 release by Avalon Hill for the Atari 2600. While most gamers know Avalon Hill better for their stellar line of military-themed board games, they also made video games at one point, and this is one of them. In Wall Ball, you play as a racket, simply trying to hit all the bricks at the end of a corridor by keeping the ball in play. Really, it's as simple as that. Well, I say it's simple, but the problem is that in early 3D games like this, it's really difficult to figure out where the ball actually is. You can try to follow it as best you can, but it's just a recipe for frustration. If there was a shadow on the top and bottom showing you how far the ball actually is, I think this would be a pretty great game. But as it stands, I couldn't wait to be done playing. 3 out of 10.